Welcome to Bloom Baptist Church services. We're glad you're joining us. Whether it's for the first time, you missed us on Sunday, or you're returning to an old favorite. If you'd like to join us for a live Sunday morning service, you can find us at the address on the screen. You can register for services online at bloombaptist.org. Service times are at 9 a.m. and 10:45 a.m. on Sunday mornings and 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday evenings. Stay connected with us through our website, bloombaptist.org, or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you'd like to give to Bloom Baptist Church today, just head to bloombaptist.org/giving and follow the instructions on the webpage. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that through the service you are about to watch, that Christ is magnified and that the Word encourages you, challenges you, and transforms you.
Merry Christmas and welcome to worship at Bloom Baptist Church. If you're our guest today, please complete a connection card and drop it into the offering box at the back of the sanctuary as you leave today. In today's bulletin, you'll find details about our couples luncheon on December 18th in Logan and the Bloom Youth Fellowship Christmas Party December 16th. Please make plans to join us for our Christmas celebration, The Glory of Christ. It's Sunday, December 20th in both of our services. And please notice that we're having two services on Christmas Eve at 4 and 6 p.m. You'll need to register for those services just like you might a Sunday morning service. And if you have ordered or would like offering envelopes for next year, you'll find those in classroom number 1 adjacent to the lobby as you came in. Please make sure you check out today's bulletin and bloombaptist.org for all the details about everything going on at Bloom Baptist Church.
Songs proclaiming the glories of Calvary. With every breath, Lord, how I long to sing of Jesus who died for me. Lord, take me deeper into the glories of Calvary.
Well, good morning, church. Thank you for joining us this Sunday morning. Glad that you're able to do that. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 6 today, so if you have your Bible, go ahead and turn there. Before we do that, I just want to give you some updates of things that are going to be happening. First of all, next Sunday morning, our praise team is going to be doing a concert, a Christmas concert, and that's what you will see here, and we invite you to come and watch that. I think that will maybe that'll get you in the spirit of Christmas a little better. And then also we want to let you know we're going to do Christmas Eve services here in person this year. We are offering two different services, one at 4 o'clock and one at 6 o'clock, so that we can provide social distancing that way. We are asking you to make reservations at the church website, bloombaptist.org, so that we will know how many are going to be in each service and so that we can provide for that social distancing. Those services are going to be identical, and they're going to be much like Christmas Eve services in the years past. We will be doing communion. You'll pick up your communion elements as you come in the door, and so while it'll look a little different, we're trying to make it look as much like what we're accustomed to as Christmas at Christmas as possible. The Christmas Eve services will be streamed live, and that will only be on Facebook. So if you're watching today via the church website or on YouTube, you will need to view Christmas Eve on Facebook, and you do not need a Facebook account in order to do that. We'll send out and make sure that you know how to do that. There'll be links that you can follow, and you don't have to be a Facebook member to do that. And so just kind of wanted you to know those things a couple of weeks in advance so that you would be able to make your plans that way. So today we're finishing the series, Stewardship of God's Treasure. How can we be better managers of the things that God has blessed us with? And so far we've seen three ways we can do this. Number one, we can reflect thankfully. This reminds us that God owns it all anyway, and that He has blessed us and given us good things. Secondly, we can give generously. And this begins with the tithe. It includes our attitude that we have as we give. God loves a cheerful giver, and it is affected. Our giving generously is affected by our attitude. We can give and give with the wrong attitude and give begrudgingly, and it really doesn't pay the blessing that is intended as we give generously. It may help the person we're giving to, but it doesn't help us. And we're reminded that as we give, what God said in Malachi chapter 3 is that as we give, the promise was blessing, that He would open the windows of heaven and pour out upon us blessing. So how do we be better managers? Well, number one, we can reflect thankfully. We can give generously. The third thing, we discussed this last week, was to live appropriately. And I believe there's a danger of being enslaved by our stuff to the point that we don't enjoy it if we don't live appropriately. And so we talked about that last week. The topic we want to cover today is to save wisely. Now, we should not confuse saving wisely with hoarding money. And we talked about hoarding money last week. And there is a difference. Hoarding money is just the desire to have more. But saving wisely entails that we have a purpose, a goal, and a plan in order to do that. And I want you to notice that I didn't say that our topic today was to save money, but it's to save wisely. And there's a difference between just saving and saving wisely. I believe there are several enemies to saving wisely. One of those enemies is the desire for instant gratification. We see things, we want things, and we're willing to go in debt to get those things. And what I know is that sometimes when we delay a purchase, we soon realize that we neither needed it nor do we want it, and at the end of the day, we just don't buy it. We're able not to spend that money. We're able to save that. I think online shopping has become a big channel for this type of overspending. Now, those of you that know me well know that I really like online shopping because I really dislike in-person shopping. I would rather just buy online and have it delivered to my house, and I'm willing to wait on that. But you know, as I look back, for example, at my past orders on Amazon, maybe I'm looking for something that I bought a year or so ago and I want to buy it again, and I look at all those other things that are listed there, and there's a lot of times where I spent $5 here, $10 there on things that I didn't need and I never used. And if we're not careful, what happens is the desire for that instant gratification means we spend money that we really should save to buy things that we really don't need. So one enemy of saving wisely is the desire for that instant satisfaction, instant gratification. Secondly is overlooking future reality, not preparing for rainy day. And, we all know that those things are going to come and we need to prepare for them. And then the third enemy is a lack of financial margin. And that literally means that there is so much money going out that there's this not enough to save. There's no money there to save. And we need to be cautious of those things as well. So today we're going to look at what it means to save wisely. So if you have your Bible to Proverbs chapter 6, we're going to read verses 6 through 11. And Solomon writing here, last week we were in Ecclesiastes. I think Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes when he was an older man. And you can just read the book of Ecclesiastes and it looks like an older fella reflecting over his life and saying all that stuff that I thought was important then, it's meaningless. Here's what really matters. I believe Proverbs was written by Solomon when he was kind of middle-aged, and he's writing it to his children, to his sons, and he's wanting them to grow up with wisdom. And here's what he says about work and about saving in Proverbs chapter 6, verse 6. He said, "Take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. Learn from their ways and become wise. Though they have no prince or governor or ruler to make them work, they labor all summer gathering food for the winter. But you lazy bones, how long will you sleep? When will you wake up? A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber." And so Solomon tells us here to consider the ant. And so let's consider the ant. I have read that there are more than 12,000 different species of ants on earth. Some have even said that if you combine the weight of all the ants on the earth, it's about the same as the combined weight of all the people on earth. And I don't know about you, but that's a lot of ants. And they have amazing strength. I mean, when you compare their strength to their size, it's said that they can lift anywhere from 10 to 50 times their weight. And I've even seen, the little ants crawling along, and they've got a big, leaf or a big stick that's far bigger than they are, and they're carrying it back to the nest, back to the colony. And they're just hard-working insects. Ants leave the colony to acquire food, and then they bring it back. And throughout history, many different teachers and scholars have used the ant as an illustration of persistence and of consistency in life. And here Solomon uses the ant as an illustration of the need to work with diligence and steadfastness in order to prepare for times that are uncertain. And so here are some of the lessons that we can learn from the ant about saving wisely. The first lesson that we learn is that saving wisely is a wise thing to do. That saving is a wise thing to do. Look at verse 6. He said, "Look at the ant, learn from their ways, and become wise." What was Solomon saying? That the ant is wise because of the way that he works, and we can learn from them. James chapter 4, verse 14 says this, "We don't know what will happen tomorrow." Here's what I know. The car's going to break down. And according to the telemarketer that keeps calling me, my extended warranty has expired. And so we're going to have bills to pay when the car breaks down. One survey that I read found that most Americans could not handle an emergency of more than $400 without using debt, without using the credit card to cover that debt. And what we can know about hard times is simply this: they will come. And wise people prepare in advance for those emergencies, for those storms to come People who live in coastal regions understand the need to be prepared for tropical storms and hurricanes because they're common in those areas. They need to board up the windows and the doors, and it means that they have to have all those supplies ready to go before the storm's arrival. Those who wait until after the storm has been forecasted often go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and they learn that there's no plywood to be found. There's no material to board up the windows and doors because they've waited too long. This is the kind of storm that you have to be prepared in advance for. Others who prepared ahead of time, they're able to protect their property, their home, because they have those things. They're put away, they're set aside for storms such as that is coming. Well, here's what I know about the storms of life. We face them all the time, but most of them come unexpectedly. There's no way of knowing when they're going to show up. There's no way of knowing how difficult they're going to be, and so we need to be ready. I mean, who knew back at the beginning of this year that we needed to stock up on toilet paper for a pandemic with flu-like symptoms? But apparently that's exactly what we needed to do. The biggest hit to your financial well-being will always come as a result of something that's usually unseen. Like there's a health issue that you didn't know was coming. Maybe you were injured. Maybe there was something that broke down or got damaged, or you lost your job. And what Solomon says to us in Proverbs chapter 6 is looking at the ant, that they are wise in working today for what's unseen tomorrow. Wise people save for unforeseen circumstances because while they don't know what the trouble will be, they know that it will come. And Solomon, observing the ant that was working today because he didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow, and he called us wise for being like them. Now, the second point that I want you to see here that I think Solomon gives us in verse 7 is that saving wisely requires self-discipline and a plan. Okay? It requires us to be self-disciplined and to have a plan. Verse 7, Solomon notices the self-discipline of the ant. He says he has no prince, no governor, no ruler that's making it work. There's no taskmaster making this ant do the work that the ant does. If you go back to verse 6, notice that Solomon contrasts the work of the ant with the ease of the slacker. Your translation may call that person a sluggard, or the New Living Translation that I read from this morning said lazy bones. That they live a life of ease and they're not disciplined to get up and to do the task and the work that's needed to be done in order to secure their financial future. Being self-disciplined means that we take responsibility for our situation, that we take responsibility for our financial well-being as far as it depends on us. Now, obviously, listen, we can't control what happens, but we can control being prepared for those things. It depends on us. And as it depends on us, we can be prepared. That we give generously, that we live appropriately, that we reflect thankfully and understand that God has charged us with just being stewards of the blessing that He is giving us. And so saving for the future requires a plan. And without a plan, and without a goal, it will never happen. Our football coach said one time to our team that a goal without a plan is just a wish. And that's so true when it comes to saving for the future. That we can, I wish I could, have a good retirement. I wish I could just go to the bank and pull out money when I need a new furnace or a new water heater. But that's never going to happen unless we have a plan in order to make it happen. And just a note that saving a lot of money can easily lead to hoarding. And that's not the point that Solomon is making here. The point is not just to have a lot of money. The point is to save today for things that are unforeseen tomorrow. So here is the point. Being able to cover emergencies without panic and without debt. The point is to be able to give generously. The point is to be able to prepare for the future and for future expenses like retirement, like kids' college, and all of those things. A few years ago, I read a book that was talking about building church facilities. I mean, this was probably 20 years ago that I read that. And the one point that I remember best from that whole book was simply this, that the cheapest way to build a new church facility, a new church building, is to build it without debt. There's a lot of things that we can do to save money and cut costs as we think about building a building or buying a car or whatever that may be. But the best way to do that is to do it without debt as much as possible. Here's the deal, guys. The water heater is going to go bad. The furnace is going to need to be replaced someday. Someday your roof is going to be at the point where it needs to be replaced. And a plan for saving includes being prepared for things such as this. So here in Proverbs chapter 6, the slacker that Solomon speaks of in verse 6 may well be the person who procrastinates, the person who says, I'm going to start saving for tomorrow, but I'll do that tomorrow. And he never gets around to having a plan and to putting that money into a savings account or into an interest-bearing account. And listen, there'll always be an excuse for not starting. There'll always be an excuse for saying, I'm going to wait and do it later, for delaying saving for the future. But wise people have a plan and they are self-disciplined to save wisely. Well, the third thing that I want you to see this morning is that saving wisely means saving during the good times. So go back now to Proverbs 6 and look at verse 8. And it says that the ant stores up provisions in the summer because it realizes that the winter will soon come. And there are a lot of things that we need to do in order to prepare for winter. This year, this season of the year, I've been concerned, obviously, not only about winterizing things at my home for the winter, but I've also been concerned about things around my parents' house. As they're not able to do some of those things anymore, my brothers and I've taken on the responsibility of those things around their house. And so I've been trying to kind of stay on track and winterize things at my dad's house and get things just ready for that season of the year. Now, where they live, it's not too uncommon for them to lose power. And so Dad has a generator. And I like to think of things in worst case scenarios, which means that we not only make sure, for example, that the generator is going to run properly, but we want to know who's going to do all the switching because it's not one of those that switches itself. And so there's a couple of switches to flip, and there's some cords to hook up, and there's just some things that need to be made ready. And so as I've thought through all of the process and did all the work and made sure the oil was changed in the generator, and we have a battery tender hooked up to it to make sure that when it's cold outside that the generator is going to start. But I did all of that work while it was still warm outside because, to be quite frankly, the power can go bad in the summer just as easy as it can go out in the winter. But I don't want to be out in the winter doing all those things that I did in the summer. I don't want to be out in the cold. And there's a saying that we use a lot that says we make hay while the sun shines. And it means that there's a season or a time when it's best to do certain things. And Solomon here urges us, the reader, to use the good times in life to prepare for the times that are coming that may not be so good. Listen, most people will experience good times in life as well as bad times. And wise people take advantage of the good seasons in order to prepare for the tough times. Let me give you this example. As we get to the end of the year, maybe as you look at 2020, there's going to be an increase in pay. Your salary is going to go up. You get a cost of living raise or a performance bonus or whatever that may be. And the increase in your paycheck shouldn't be immediately seen as an opportunity just to spend more money, but as an opportunity to save more money without missing that money. You're already used to living on one set amount. How about, using the good times to prepare for the difficult times? Go back to verse 9 to 11, and Solomon says there, but you lazy bones, how long will you sleep? A little, or when will you wake up? A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little more folding of the hands to rest. Listen to what he says. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. Here's what Solomon was saying. Stop putting it off and start working on a plan. Use the good times to prepare for the difficult times. And notice what Solomon says here is that poverty will pounce like a bandit. And many of the difficult times in life, the storms in life, they come unannounced. It's not like the hurricane in Florida where they've been forecast for a week or 10 days in advance. It comes without notice, and it comes just all of a sudden. And it has the potential sometimes of ruining us if we're not prepared for that. But saving wisely enables us to be better prepared for those things. Think about Genesis chapter 41. And what you see there is the story of really the latter part of Genesis talks about really the biography of a guy named Joseph. Joseph was the son of Jacob, and he was kind of spoiled, to be honest with you. His brothers sold him into slavery. A man named Potiphar bought him and put him in charge of everything at his house. He did well. He rose to the top. Potiphar's wife took a shine to Joseph, and when Joseph would not respond to her advances, she had him thrown in prison. While he was in prison, he rose to the top. The captain of the guard put Joseph in charge of everything at the prison, and didn't worry about anything that was under Joseph's control. While Joseph was there was the baker and the cupbearer to the king of Egypt, Pharaoh. And they had dreams, and Joseph was able to interpret their dreams. For the baker, it wasn't a good thing. He was later put to death, but the cupbearer was acquitted of any crime and was put back in charge of the king's food and of the king's drink. And Joseph said, "Hey, when you get back there, remember me. Remember, talk to the king, talk to Pharaoh. Put in a good word for me." Well, the cupbearer got back, and he got busy, or didn't think it was wise to talk to the king about this nobody that was down in the dungeon, and so he didn't say anything about it. Well, then Pharaoh had a dream, and in his dream, there were 7 fat cows that were eaten by 7 skinny cows. And this caused a lot of confusion and consternation for Pharaoh, and he wanted to know what it meant, but none of his wise people could interpret the dream. And then the cupbearer suddenly remembered Joseph, who was able to interpret the dream, and he came and he said to Pharaoh that there would be 7 years of abundance in the land when the crops would yield a great harvest, but that it was going to be followed by 7 years of famine. And his instruction or his advice to Pharaoh was to get ready. Well, you know the story. Pharaoh put Joseph in charge, and again he rose to the top, second in charge of the whole kingdom of Egypt, only to Pharaoh. We know that his family came to live there, and you will know all of that. But it all happened because he understood what God was saying, and he understood the concept that there will be good times, and in the good times we need to save and be ready for the bad times. And so what do we learn? Stop putting it off. Work on a plan and begin to save in the good season for those times that will be difficult. And so being good stewards of God's treasure requires us to do these 4 things at least. Number 1, reflect thankfully. Number 2, give generously. Number 3, live appropriately. And finally, number 4, to save wisely. It means that we recognize God's ownership over everything and that we are his managers. You'll remember the parable that Jesus told in Matthew 25 of the talents. And a certain manager, a certain owner, landowner was leaving, and he left 3 of his servants in charge of varying amounts of money. It's called talents in the parable that Jesus gave there. And you remember the first 2 invested the money, and when the owner came back, they gave him not only what he had given them, but he gave them they gave him the profit, the benefits from their investments as well. But you'll also remember that the final servant was only given 1 talent, and he didn't put it in the bank. He didn't put it on the stock market. He didn't try to make it grow. He hid it in the ground. And you'll remember what Jesus said that the owner's response was. It wasn't, "You careful, wise servant," but he said, "You wicked, lazy servant." He said that he was wicked for not trying to make more on the investment that he had been given. And while I don't think that parable was 100% talking about our finances and our money, I think that we cannot overlook the connection that it makes to that. That we can't put off today thinking about what we need to do tomorrow. And so saving wisely means that we understand the need to put back in the good times so that we're prepared when the bad times come. But here's the deal too. It also reminds us that we can't control the future, and it reminds us of the things that we can't save. And here's the deal. We can't save ourselves. We can't save ourselves from sin. We can't save ourselves from death, and we can't save ourselves from hell. But here's the good news. Jesus' work on the cross saves us all who will believe and accept the gift of salvation that he offers. And so my question as we close today, has there ever been a time in your life when you asked Jesus to save you? Has there ever been a time when you've asked him to forgive you of your sin, to be your Lord, and allow him then to lead you and to guide you and direct you in your life? And if you've never done that, we invite you today, just right now where you're at, say, Jesus, forgive me of my sin, give me eternity in heaven, and be my Lord. If you'd like to talk to one of us about that, we would encourage you to contact us here at the church, and we would love nothing more than to talk to you about that. And we'll take the time to do that and to show you how you can accept Christ. For those of you that are saved, and many have been saved for a very, very long time, my question is, are you being a good steward, a good manager of all that God has given you? Are you reflecting thankfully, giving generously, living appropriately, and finally, are you saving wisely and working today for what will come tomorrow?
Thank you for joining us today. If you made a decision to respond to the risen Christ today, need prayer, or just have questions, please send us an email at info@bloombaptist.org or call the number on the screen. Don't forget to stay connected with us via our website or Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you decided to give to Bloom Baptist today, just head to bloombaptist.org/giving and follow the instructions on the screen. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Now may the God of peace, who brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, the great shepherd of the sheep, by the blood of the eternal covenant, equip you with everything good that you may do his will, working in us that which is pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen.